The blood on the marble floor wasn't supposed to be there. Keisha's hands shook as she clutched baby James tighter to her chest, his confused whimpers the only sound in the deathly silent penthouse. The bodyguard who'd protected her for 3 months lay motionless by the door, a pool of crimson spreading beneath him like a dark halo. She'd made it 5 steps toward the panic room before she heard the footsteps behind her. Slow, deliberate, confident. Going somewhere, Ms. Washington? The voice was unfamiliar, cold, and carried the weight of authority she'd learned to fear in this world. She turned slowly, positioning James behind her body as much as possible. 3 men in expensive suits stood in her living room. Not Minjun's men. She knew all of his security by name. These were strangers, and the way they looked at her made her skin crawl. The one in the center, silver-haired, distinguished, with eyes like a shark, smiled. The council would like a word with you. And with the child. Her blood turned to ice. Minjun is currently indisposed, which is why we're here. He gestured to the door. Come peacefully, and the boy stays unharmed. Resist, and well, accidents happen to babies all the time. James started crying, as if he understood the threat. Keisha's world narrowed to a single choice: fight or surrender. She looked at the dead bodyguard. She looked at her son. She surrendered. Welcome back to True Soul Stories. If you watch part 1, then you already know things spiraled fast. But what happens next? Nobody is ready for it. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button right now because this story goes places that will leave you speechless. Let's get into it. The black SUV drove through the city like a hearse heading to a funeral. Keisha sat in the back, James clutched to her chest, flanked by 2 silent men who hadn't spoken since they'd forced her into the vehicle. The third man sat in the passenger seat, occasionally glancing back at her through the rearview mirror with that same unsettling smile. Where are you taking us? Her voice came out stronger than she felt. To meet the people who actually run this city. The ones your partner answers to, whether he admits it or not. Minjun doesn't answer to anyone. The man laughed. That's what he'd like to think. But every king has a council, Ms. Washington. And every council has the power to unmake what they've made. I don't understand. You will. They drove for another 20 minutes, leaving the glittering downtown behind and entering a part of the city Keisha had never seen. Old money. Historic mansions hidden behind iron gates and ancient trees. The kind of wealth that didn't advertise itself because it didn't need to. The SUV pulled up to her estate that looked like it belonged in a different century. Gothic architecture. Manicured grounds. Guard towers disguised as decorative spires. Welcome to the real seat of power, the silver-haired man said. Try not to embarrass yourself. They escorted her inside. The interior was exactly what she expected. Crystal chandeliers, oil paintings worth more than her entire life, marble everything. But it was the silence that unnerved her most. No servants, no sounds, just the echo of their footsteps and James's occasional whimpers. They led her to a set of massive wooden doors. The silver-haired man knocked twice, then pushed them open. The woman and the child, as requested. Keisha stepped into what could only be described as a throne room. A semicircle of high-backed chairs faced her, and in each chair sat someone who radiated power. Old men and women, their faces weathered by decades of control and violence. Some Korean, some Chinese, some European. A United Nations of organized crime. And in the center chair, directly facing her, sat a woman who made Mrs. Park look like an amateur. She was ancient, had to be in her 80s, but her eyes were sharp as broken glass. Her hands, folded in her lap, were covered in rings that probably cost more than small countries. So, the old woman said, her voice surprisingly strong. This is the maid who thinks she can birth her way into our world. Keisha's spine stiffened. I never asked to be part of your world. And yet here you stand, holding what you claim is Minjun Park's heir. I don't claim anything. James is his son. That's a fact, not an opinion. A few of the council members exchanged glances. The old woman's lips curved into something that might have been a smile on someone less terrifying. Bold. I'll give you that. She leaned forward, her rings catching the light. But boldness without wisdom is just stupidity wearing a brave face. Do you have any idea what you've done? I gave Minjun what his wife refused to. You gave him a complication. The old woman's voice cracked like a whip. You gave him a vulnerability. A weakness. In our world, Weaknesses get people killed. Then maybe your world needs to change. The room went deathly silent. One of the men, heavy-set, with scars visible even from a distance, leaned forward. Did this bitch just... Silence. The old woman raised one hand, and the man shut his mouth instantly. She studied Keisha with new interest. You're either very brave or very stupid. I haven't decided which yet. Does it matter? You're going to do what you're going to do regardless of what I say. True. The old woman sat back. But I'm curious. Tell me, Ms. Washington, why should we accept this child as legitimate? Why should we allow Min-jun to pass his empire to the bastard son of a maid? The word hit like a slap, but Keisha didn't flinch. Because he's the only heir Min-jun will ever have. And because the alternative is watching everything Min-jun has built get torn apart by vultures fighting over the scraps. We could simply eliminate the problem. The scarred man again. One bullet. Clean. Simple. Keisha's arms tightened around James. You'd have to go through me first. That could be arranged. Enough. The old woman's voice cut through the tension. Victor, if I want your opinion, I'll ask for it. Until then, keep your bloodlust to yourself. Victor, the scarred man, settled back into his chair, but his eyes never left Keisha. The old woman continued. Here is our situation. Min-jun Park controls the largest territory in this city. His operations are efficient, profitable, and relatively clean. We've allowed him significant autonomy because he produces results. Then what's the problem? The problem is succession. The problem is legitimacy. The problem is that every family in this room has daughters, nieces, cousins who were supposed to be considered for marriage to Min-jun, alliances that would have strengthened bonds between our organizations. The old woman's eyes hardened. Instead, he impregnated the help and expects us to accept it. He divorced his wife. Legally, everything was done properly. Legally means nothing in our world, child. Power is what matters. Perception is what matters. And right now, the perception is that Min-jun let his desperation make him weak. Or maybe, Keisha said carefully, the perception is that he did what he had to do to ensure his legacy continues, and that he chose someone loyal over someone who was actively trying to destroy him. A woman on the left, elegant, middle-aged, with cold intelligence in her eyes, spoke for the first time. She has a point, Madam Chun. Min-jun's former wife was a viper. We all knew it. The marriage was a disaster from the start. That doesn't legitimize this situation, Yuki. No, Yuki agreed. But it does complicate the narrative that he simply made a reckless choice. Madam Chun, the old woman, drummed her fingers on the armrest. Tell me, Ms. Washington, what do you think your role is in all of this? I don't understand the question. It's simple. Do you see yourself as Min-jun's partner? His wife? The mother of his heir, and nothing more? A woman in the shadows? What exactly do you believe you are? Keisha hesitated. She'd asked herself the same question 1,000 times in the past 3 months. I'm the mother of his son. Everything else, we haven't figured out yet. Honest, at least. Madam Chun stood slowly, her movements deliberate. She walked down the steps from her elevated chair and approached Keisha. May I see the child? Every instinct screamed at Keisha to refuse. But she was trapped, surrounded, and completely at their mercy. She carefully turned James so Madam Chun could see his face. The old woman studied him for a long moment. James, miraculously, had stopped crying and was staring at her with wide, curious eyes. He has Min-jun's eyes, Madam Chun said softly, and his father's eyes before him. I knew them both. She reached out one gnarled finger, and James grabbed it with his tiny hand. Strong grip. Good. She looked back at Keisha. The child is legitimate. I can see it. Feel it. He carries the bloodline. Relief flooded through Keisha's body. However, Madam Chun continued, and the relief evaporated. Legitimacy of blood is not enough. We must consider what kind of heir he'll become. What kind of influences will shape him. What kind of mother will raise him. I'll raise him to be strong, to be smart, to survive in whatever world he's born into. Will you raise him to be ruthless? To make the hard choices? To kill when necessary? The question hit like ice water. I don't know. At least you're honest. Madam Chun released James's hand and walked back to her chair. Here is the council's decision. We will accept James Park as Min-jun's legitimate heir, with conditions. What conditions? First, you will submit to a DNA test. Independently verified. No room for doubt. Fine. Second, you will undergo training. If you are to be the mother of a Mafia heir, you must understand our world, our rules, our ways. You will be educated by people we assign. What kind of training? Everything from etiquette to self-defense. From financial management to, let's call it conflict resolution. You will learn to be an asset, not a liability. Keisha's mind raced. And if I refuse? Then James is removed from your custody and raised by people we trust. You'll be compensated generously and sent somewhere far away to live out your life in comfort. But you'll never see your son again. The room started spinning. You can't do that. We can do whatever we want, Ms. Washington. That's what power means. Madam Chin settled back into her chair. But we're not unreasonable. We're giving you a choice. Stay and adapt, or leave and let others shape your son's future. What does Min Jun say about this? Min Jun doesn't get a vote. Not in this matter. Victor smiled cruelly. He created this problem. We're solving it. Third condition, Madam Chun continued. You and Min Jun will formalize your relationship. Not necessarily marriage. That's complicated by his recent divorce, but a formal partnership recognized by all families. No more ambiguity. No more whispers of scandal. Fourth, James will be raised with knowledge of all the families, not just the Parks. He will learn that he serves the council, not just his father's interests. You want to brainwash my son. We want to ensure he understands the larger picture, that he doesn't become a tyrant like some heirs have in the past. Madam Chin's eyes hardened. We've seen what happens when powerful men raise sons with no checks on their authority. It never ends well. And the final condition? Keisha's voice was hollow. You will be tested. Not today, not tomorrow, but someday, when you least expect it, you will face a choice that will determine whether you truly belong in this world or whether you're simply playing dress-up in clothes too dangerous for you to wear. What kind of test? If we told you, it wouldn't be a test. Madam Chin smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression Keisha had ever seen. But know this, failure means death. Yours, Min Jun's, or James's. The council decides which. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. So, Madam Chin said, what is your answer? Will you accept our conditions and fight for your place in this world? Or will you take the money and run? Keisha looked down at James, who had fallen asleep in her arms, completely unaware that his entire future was being decided in this moment. She thought about her grandmother, safe and healthy because of Min Jun's money. She thought about the life she'd left behind, the poverty, the helplessness, the endless struggle. She thought about Min Jun's face when he held his son for the first time, the way his entire world had realigned around this tiny life. And she thought about what kind of mother she wanted to be. One who ran when things got hard, or one who stood and fought for her child's future, no matter how terrifying the cost. I accept your conditions. Madam Chin nodded slowly. Good. Your training begins immediately. Victor will oversee your education in practical matters. Yuki will handle etiquette and cultural integration, and I will personally evaluate your progress. When can I see Min Jun? When we decide you're ready. Until then, you and the child will remain in our care. You're keeping us prisoner. We're keeping you safe, Yuki corrected. There are people who would kill you both to destabilize Min Jun. Here, under our protection, you're untouchable. He won't accept this. He'll come for us. He already tried. Madam Chin's smile returned. Why do you think he's indisposed? We had to convince him that cooperation was in everyone's best interest. It took some persuasion. Keisha's blood ran cold. What did you do to him? Nothing permanent. He'll recover. But he needed to understand that he doesn't control everything anymore. That his son's future depends on his ability to work with us, not against us. You're monsters. We're survivors, Victor said. And soon, you will be too. Or you'll be dead. Either way, the problem resolves itself. The doors opened, and two women entered. One was young, maybe mid-20s, dressed in designer clothes that probably cost more than Keisha's entire wardrobe. The other was older, stern-faced, with the bearing of a drill sergeant. Ms. Washington, Madam Chin said, meet your new team. Minji will handle your physical training and security education. Henna will manage everything else. They will live with you, train you, and report your progress directly to me. Starting now. Keisha's voice cracked. Starting now. Minji stepped forward and held out her arms. I'll take the baby. He'll be cared for in the nursery while you begin orientation. No. Keisha clutched James tighter. He stays with me. That's not how this works, Henna said coldly. I don't care how it works. You want me to cooperate? Fine. But my son doesn't leave my sight. Madam Chen studied her for a long moment. Then she nodded. Very well. The child stays with you during training. But know that this makes everything harder. For both of you. I don't care. You will. Madam Chen waved her hand dismissively. Take her. Begin the process. We have 3 months until the formal presentation. She needs to be ready. Minji and Hannah flanked Keisha, guiding her toward a different exit. As they left the throne room, Keisha heard Madam Chen's voice one last time. Oh, and Ms. Washington? Welcome to the family. Try not to die too quickly. I'd hate to have wasted this much time on you. The laughter that followed echoed down the hallway like the sound of nails in a coffin. If you're still watching, hit that like button right now and drop a comment telling me. Would you accept the council's conditions, or would you take the money and run? Because what Keisha's about to go through, it's going to test everything she thinks she knows about herself. The next 8 weeks were hell. Keisha woke at 5 every morning to the sound of Hannah's voice cutting through the darkness like a blade. Up. Now. You have 30 seconds. She'd stumble out of bed, check on James in his crib, and throw on workout clothes before Minji dragged her to the estate's private gym. The physical training was brutal. Self-defense, weapons handling, endurance exercises that left her gasping and crying. Minji showed no mercy, no sympathy. In this world, hesitation kills you, she'd say, landing another punishing blow that Keisha barely blocked. Your son needs a mother who can protect him, not one who freezes when danger comes. After 3 hours of physical torture, Hannah would take over. Etiquette lessons. How to address each family's representatives. The history of the council. Financial management. Legal structures used to hide criminal enterprises. Everything a mafia wife, though they never used that word, needed to know to survive in high society while blood money funded the champagne. You think this is about table manners? Hannah snapped after Keisha fumbled with the wrong fork for the 3rd time. This is about proving you're not an embarrassment. One wrong move at a formal dinner, and you undermine Min Jun's position. You make him look weak. Weak men don't last long in this world. The only breaks Keisha got were to feed James, change him, and steal a few precious moments of peace watching him sleep. He was growing so fast, already starting to smile, reaching for things with his tiny hands, completely unaware that his mother was being forged into something she'd never wanted to become. 3 weeks into training, Minji brought her to the shooting range. No. Keisha backed away from the gun on the table. I'm not doing this. You don't have a choice. I'm not becoming a killer. You're becoming a survivor. Minji picked up the gun, a compact 9mm, and held it out. This isn't about killing people for fun. This is about protecting yourself and your son when the security team can't. What happens if someone gets past your guards? What happens if you're alone with James and someone comes through that door with bad intentions? I'll run. I'll hide. And if you can't? If they're faster? If there's nowhere to go? Minji's voice softened slightly. I know you don't want this. But wanting and needing are different things. You need this skill. James needs you to have this skill. Keisha's hands shook as she took the gun. It was heavier than she expected. Cold. Final. First lesson, Minji said. Respect the weapon. It's not a toy. It's not a prop. It's a tool that takes lives. Every time you pick it up, you acknowledge that responsibility. They spent 6 hours at the range. By the end, Keisha's ears were ringing despite the protection, her arms ached, and she'd hit the target more often than not. She hated every second of it, but she couldn't deny the small sense of security it provided. At night, alone in her room with James sleeping peacefully beside her, Keisha would cry. Silent, exhausted tears that no one would ever see. She'd signed up to give a man an heir in exchange for money. She'd never signed up for this. 5 weeks in, Minjun finally appeared. Keisha was in the garden with James, enjoying a rare moment of sunshine, when she heard the voice that made her heart stop. He's gotten bigger. She spun around. Minjun stood at the garden entrance, flanked by 2 guards. He looked thinner, exhausted, with a healing cut above his eyebrow she didn't remember. Minjun. His name came out as a sob. She wanted to run to him, but something in his posture stopped her. He approached slowly, his eyes locked on James. When he was close enough, he reached out and gently touched his son's cheek. James gurgled happily, grabbing his father's finger. I've missed 2 months of his life, Minjun said, his voice raw. They wouldn't let me contact you. I tried. They took my phone, I know. It's not your fault. He finally looked at her, and the pain in his eyes was unbearable. Are they treating you well? They're training me, breaking me down, and building me back up into something I don't recognize. I'm sorry. I never wanted this for you. What did they do to you? That cut. Nothing I didn't survive. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The council needed to remind me that I'm not as powerful as I thought. That my son's future depends on their approval. This is insane. We should run. Take James and just disappear. There's nowhere we could go that they wouldn't find us. And running would mark James as illegitimate forever. Every enemy I've ever made would hunt him. At least this way, he has the council's protection. At what cost? Everything. Minjun cupped her face gently. But he's worth it. You're both worth it. I don't know if I can do this. They want me to become someone I'm not. Then become someone new. Someone stronger. Someone who can stand beside me in this world instead of hiding behind me. He leaned his forehead against hers. I need you to survive this, Keisha. I can't do this without you. You did fine before I came along. No, I didn't. I was dying slowly, building an empire with no one to leave it to. No reason to care if any of it lasted beyond my death. You gave me a reason. You and James. Don't take that away now. She kissed him then, desperately, pouring all her fear and frustration and love into that single moment of connection. When they pulled apart, both were crying. How much longer? She whispered. 4 more weeks. Then the formal presentation. If you pass, if the council accepts you, then we can be together properly. As a family. And if I don't pass? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. They sat in the garden for 2 hours, barely talking, just existing in each other's presence while James played with his father's expensive watch. Then the guards came to take Minjun away. I love you, he said at the door. The first time he'd ever said those words. I love you too. The first time she'd admitted it out loud. Then he was gone. And Keisha was alone again with her son and her fear. The final week before the presentation, Madam Chen summoned her. The old woman sat in a different room this time. Smaller, more intimate. Tea was laid out on the table between them. Sit, Madam Chen commanded. Keisha obeyed, James sleeping in a carrier strapped to her chest. You've done well, Madam Chen said. Better than expected. Minji says you're competent with firearms now. Hannah says your etiquette is acceptable. You've learned quickly. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. The real test hasn't begun. The presentation. No. The presentation is theater. Important theater, but theater nonetheless. Madam Chen poured tea with steady hands. I'm talking about the test I mentioned on your first day. The one that determines if you truly belong. Keisha's blood ran cold. When? Soon. Could be tomorrow. Could be next month. Could be next year. But it will come, and when it does, you'll have seconds to make a choice that will define everything. What kind of choice? I won't tell you that. But I will give you advice, since I find myself fond of you. Madam Chen's eyes softened slightly. When the test comes, remember this. In our world, there are no good choices. Only necessary ones. The women who survive are the ones who can make the necessary choice without hesitation, then live with the consequences without breaking. That sounds like hell. It is. But it's also power. Real power. The kind that doesn't come from money or position, but from the strength to do what others can't. She sipped her tea. Your son will need a mother with that kind of power. So will Minjun. And if I can't be that person, then you'll fail. And failure means death. Maybe not immediate death. Maybe not physical death. But something inside you will die, and you'll become a shell. A decoration. A liability. Madam Chen stood, signaling the conversation was over. One more thing, she said at the door. I knew Minjun's mother. Beautiful woman. Strong. But she couldn't make the necessary choices when the time came. It destroyed her. Don't let history repeat itself. She left Keisha alone with her tea and her terror. The presentation ceremony was held in the main ballroom of the estate. Every family sent representatives. Some Keisha recognized from the council meeting. Others were new faces, younger but no less dangerous. She wore a dress Hannah had selected, elegant but not flashy, expensive but understated. Her hair was done professionally. Her makeup perfect. She looked like she belonged. She felt like an imposter. Minjun stood at the front of the room, and when their eyes met, she saw the same fear reflected back at her. Madam Chen called the room to order. We gather tonight to formally acknowledge James Park as the legitimate heir to the Park family empire and to recognize Keisha Washington as his mother and Min Jun Park's consort. Consort, not wife. The distinction was deliberate. The child has been tested. DNA confirms his lineage. He carries the Park blood, the Park legacy, and the Park future. A few murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. The mother has been evaluated. She has demonstrated competence, adaptability, and the willingness to learn our ways. While unconventional, her loyalty to Min Jun and to James cannot be questioned. More murmurs, some approving, some skeptical. Therefore, the council recognizes this union and this child. Any who wish to contest this recognition may speak now. Silence. Keisha held her breath. Then, from the back of the room, a voice. I contest. Every head turned. A man stepped forward. Mid-40s, handsome in a brutal way, with a scar running down his left cheek. Who the hell are you? Min Jun's voice was deadly quiet. Someone who was married to your ex-wife's sister. Someone who has a legitimate claim to challenge your heir's position. On what grounds? Madam Chen demanded. On the grounds that Min Jun Park abandoned a proper alliance marriage to produce a bastard with the help. On the grounds that this child's blood is diluted. On the grounds that a half-breed has no business inheriting a Korean empire. The room exploded into noise. Min Jun moved forward, but guards held him back. Keisha felt the words like physical blows. Half-breed. Bastard. Diluted blood. The man continued, his voice rising. The council has gone soft, allowing this insult to tradition, to blood purity, to everything we've built. I say the child should be declared illegitimate and removed. Let Min Jun marry properly this time and produce a real heir. You dare, Min Jun snarled. I dare because I'm not the only one thinking it. The man gestured to the crowd. How many of you agree with me? How many of you think this situation is acceptable? A few hands went up. Not many, but enough. Madam Chen's face was stone. The council has made its decision. Then unmake it, or I will challenge it through traditional means. What are you suggesting? The man smiled. Trial by combat. My champion against his. Winner determines the child's legitimacy. That's archaic, Yuki protested. We haven't used that method in decades. The old ways exist for a reason. When the council cannot agree, blood decides. Madam Chen looked at Min Jun. Do you accept this challenge? Hell yes, I accept. Name your champion. I am my champion. The man cracked his knuckles. And I've been killing men since before you learned to walk. Then you'll die. Min Jun started to remove his jacket. Wait. Keisha's voice cut through the tension. Every eye turned to her. She stepped forward, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might explode. If this fight is about James's legitimacy, about whether I'm worthy to be his mother, then I should be the one to defend him. Dead silence. Keisha, no, Min Jun started. I'll fight your champion. She looked the scarred man in the eye. You want to prove I don't belong in this world? Prove it. Beat me, and I'll leave. I'll give up my son, take the money, and disappear. But if I win, you acknowledge James. You accept me, and you never question his legitimacy again. The man laughed. You? Fight me? That's suicide. Maybe, but it's my choice. Madam Chen studied her with those sharp, ancient eyes. You understand what you're proposing? This isn't a sparring match. This is to the death or submission. Blood must be spilled. I understand. You've only trained for 8 weeks. He's been a killer for 30 years. I know. Then why? Keisha looked at James, sleeping peacefully in Minji's arms now. Because he's my son, and I'll die before I let anyone take him from me. Madam Chen smiled. Actually smiled. I was waiting for this. Your test, Keisha. It came sooner than expected, but here it is. Fight or run. Protect your child or save yourself. This was planned, not the challenger. But I knew someone would push eventually. I wanted to see what you'd do. She turned to the crowd. Very well. We'll have our trial by combat. Tomorrow night. Keisha Washington versus Lee Chong-ho. To submission or death. The winner determines the child's fate. The room erupted again. Min Jun pushed through the guards and grabbed Keisha's shoulders. Are you insane? He'll kill you. Then train me. You have 24 hours. Make me ready. 24 hours isn't enough time to. It has to be. She gripped his arms. Because if I don't fight, I lose anyway. At least this way, I go down swinging. His eyes searched hers, desperate, terrified. Then he nodded. Okay. We train all night. We don't sleep. We don't stop. And we pray it's enough. One more thing. Keisha said to the crowd. When I win, not if, when, I want an apology. From every single person in this room who thought I wasn't good enough, who thought my son was less than, who thought I was just the help. And if you lose? Chang-ho sneered. Then I guess you'll never know what it feels like to be beaten by a maid. She walked out of the ballroom with her head high, Min-jun at her side, and the sound of shocked whispers following her like thunder. Minji found her in the training room an hour later. I heard what you did. That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever witnessed. Probably both. Keisha wrapped her hands for practice. Will you help me? Help you what? Survive? Against Chang-ho? Minji shook her head. He's a legitimate killer, Keisha. He's taken down men twice his size. He fights dirty. No rules. No mercy. Then teach me to fight dirtier. Minji studied her for a long moment. Then she smiled. All right. If you're determined to die tomorrow, let's at least make it memorable. They trained through the night. Min-jun brought in every fighter he trusted. They showed her weak points, vulnerable areas, how to use her smaller size as an advantage, how to absorb a hit and keep moving, how to kill, if necessary. I don't know if I can do that, Keisha admitted as dawn broke. Actually kill someone. Then you've already lost, Minji said bluntly. Because he won't hesitate. The second you show mercy, the second you hold back, he'll end you. There has to be another way. There isn't. Not in this fight. Min-jun knelt in front of her. I know what I'm asking. I know this goes against everything you believe. But if you want to see James grow up, if you want to be his mother and not a memory, you have to be willing to do what he does. Fight without rules. Survive by any means necessary. Keisha closed her eyes. She thought about her grandmother, who'd fought cancer with every ounce of strength in her body. She thought about her parents, who'd worked themselves to death trying to provide a better life. She thought about every person who'd looked down on her, dismissed her, treated her like she didn't matter. And she thought about James, her son, her everything. Okay, she whispered. Teach me how to win. The fight was scheduled for midnight. The ballroom had been transformed into an arena. The furniture removed. A mat laid down in the center. Spectators arranged in a circle around it. Every family representative was there. Every council member. Every person who had any stake in the outcome. Keisha entered wearing simple clothes. No armor. No protection. Just her and what she'd learned. Chang-ho stood across from her, stripped to the waist, his body covered in scars that told stories of violence survived. Last chance to run, he called out. I'll make it quick. Relatively painless. I'm not running. Your funeral. Madam Chun stepped into the circle. The rules are simple. Fight until one submits or dies. No weapons beyond what your body provides. No interference. The winner's decision regarding the child is final. She looked at both fighters. Begin. Chang-ho moved first. He was fast, faster than Keisha expected, his fist driving toward her face with lethal intent. She barely dodged, feeling the wind from his punch. He followed up immediately, a combination that drove her backward. She blocked what she could, but several hits landed, pain exploding across her ribs and shoulder. The crowd gasped. Too slow. Chang-ho taunted. This won't take long. Keisha circled, trying to remember everything she'd learned. Use his momentum. Stay mobile. Don't let him corner you. He lunged again, and this time she was ready. She sidestepped, grabbed his extended arm, and used his forward motion to throw him off balance. He stumbled but recovered instantly, spinning with a back fist that caught her across the cheek. Stars exploded in her vision. Blood filled her mouth. She spat it out and smiled. That all you got? His eyes narrowed. You want more? I'll give you more. He came at her like a storm, fists and feet flying in combinations she had no hope of fully blocking. She took hits to the body, the head, the legs. Each one sent shockwaves of pain through her system. But she kept moving, kept fighting, kept refusing to go down. Stay down. Chang-ho roared after a particularly brutal combination sent her sprawling. Keisha pushed herself up, her body screaming in protest. Across the crowd, she saw Min-jun's face, pale and terrified. She saw James in Minji's arms, still blessedly asleep. And she saw Madam Chun, watching with calculating interest. Not yet, Keisha gasped. Not done yet. She had one advantage. One thing Chang-ho didn't know. She was willing to lose everything except her son. And that made her more dangerous than he could imagine. Now listen, if you've made it this far into this story, I need you to smash that subscribe button because part 3 is going to be insane. Comment below, Keisha better win, if you're Team Keisha, and hit that like button to show support. Because what happens next in this fight? Nobody sees it coming. Chang-ho circled her like a predator who knew his prey was wounded. You've got heart, I'll give you that. But heart doesn't win fights. Skill does. Experience does. He rushed her again. But this time, Keisha didn't try to block or dodge. She moved forward, inside his guard, accepting a crushing blow to her shoulder to get close enough to drive her thumb into his throat. Not hard enough to kill, just hard enough to make him gag, to disrupt his breathing, to create a moment of hesitation. In that moment, she drove her knee into his groin with every ounce of strength she had left. He dropped, not down, but to one knee, his face contorted in pain. Dirty, he wheezed. You fight dirty. I fight to win. She kicked him in the face, felt his nose break under her foot. He grabbed her leg, twisted, and she went down hard. They grappled on the mat, all technique abandoned, just two people trying to kill each other with whatever they could reach. He got on top of her, his hands around her throat. Should have run, he gasped, blood from his broken nose dripping onto her face. Should have taken the money. Her vision started to go black. She thought of James. She thought of Min-jun. She thought of her grandmother. And she stopped trying to pry his hands away from her throat. Instead, she drove her thumbs into his eyes. He screamed and released her. She sucked in air, her throat on fire, and rolled away. They both struggled to their feet. Both bloodied. Both exhausted. Both refusing to quit. You're tougher than you look, Chang-ho admitted, one eye swelling shut. But tough isn't enough. Then what is? Love. He smiled through the blood. You love that kid. I can see it. Feel it. You'll do anything for him. Damn right. So will I. His smile faded. You think you're the only one fighting for family? My wife's sister was shamed when Min-jun divorced her. My reputation was damaged. My family was humiliated. I'm fighting to restore honor. Honor. Keisha laughed bitterly. You're fighting because you're a racist asshole who can't stand that a black woman gave a Korean man something his wife wouldn't. His face darkened. Careful. No. I'm done being careful. I'm done apologizing for existing. For daring to love someone who wasn't appropriate. For having a child who doesn't fit your narrow definition of acceptable. She wiped blood from her mouth. My son is legitimate. Not because the council says so. Not because you acknowledge it. But because he exists. Because he was wanted. Because he's loved. Pretty speech. Won't save you. They charged each other simultaneously. The final exchange was chaos. Punches, kicks, grapples, neither giving an inch. Keisha felt ribs crack. Felt her left eye swell shut. Felt exhaustion pulling at every muscle. But she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Chang-ho was flagging too. His movement slower. His blocks weaker. They'd both reached the end of their reserves. It would come down to who had more will to continue. Keisha thought about her grandmother's words. Baby, in this life, you either bend or you break. But bending ain't the same as breaking. You bend so you can snap back stronger. She'd bent. God, she'd bent so far she thought she'd break. Time to snap back. She dropped her guard, leaving herself completely open. Chang-ho saw the opening and took it, putting everything he had left into one final, devastating punch aimed at her head. She moved at the last possible second. His fist whistled past her ear. His momentum carried him forward. And she brought her elbow down on the back of his neck with every ounce of strength, rage, and love she possessed. He dropped like a puppet with cut strings. Didn't move. Didn't breathe. The room went silent. Keisha stood over him, swaying, barely conscious herself. Get up, she gasped. Get up and fight. He didn't move. A doctor rushed forward, checked his pulse, his breathing. He's alive, the doctor announced. Unconscious, but alive. The tension broke. Some people cheered. Others looked disgusted. Most looked shocked. Keisha's legs gave out. Min-jun caught her before she hit the ground. I won, she mumbled into his chest. I won. You won. His voice broke. You insane, beautiful, terrifying woman. You won. Madam Chun approached, looking at Keisha with something that might have been respect. James Park is legitimate, she announced to the room. Keisha Washington has proven herself worthy. Any who disagree can take it up with me personally. No one disagreed. Get her to the medical wing, Madam Chun ordered. And someone carry that idiot out too. He'll live to regret challenging her. As they carried Keisha away, she saw Minji holding James, who was finally awake and crying. "Bring him," Keisha whispered. "Need to hold my son." They brought him to her in the medical wing, where doctors were assessing her injuries. 3 cracked ribs, fractured cheekbone, severe bruising, mild concussion, but alive. She held James with her one good arm, tears streaming down her face. "Hey baby," she whispered. "Mama fought for you. Mama won." Minjun sat beside her, holding both of them. "I love you," he said. "I've never said it enough. I love you so much it terrifies me. I love you too." She looked at him through her swollen eyes. "But if you ever ask me to do something like that again, I'm leaving. Taking James and running to another country where nobody knows what a mafia is." He laughed, the sound desperate and relieved. "Deal. No more death matches." "Good." They sat in silence, the 3 of them, a family forged in violence and desperation and love. Outside the medical wing, the council dispersed. Inside, Keisha closed her eyes and let herself believe, for just a moment, that maybe they'd actually survive this world. That maybe their family had a chance. That maybe love really was stronger than blood and violence and tradition. But in the shadows, a figure watched. Someone who hadn't spoken at the council meeting. Someone who'd been waiting for the right moment. The fight wasn't over. It had only just begun, and the next threat wouldn't announce itself. It would strike when they least expected it, when they thought they were finally safe, when they thought they'd won. Because in the Mafia, you never really won. You just survived long enough to face the next battle. And somewhere in Seoul, someone was already planning theirs. All right, fam, that's where we're ending part 2. If you want part 3, and trust me, you need part 3, then you better flood those comments with part 3 now. Hit that subscribe button, smash that like, and get ready because the next part is going to reveal who's been watching from the shadows this whole time. And when you find out who it is, your mind is going to be blown. This is True Soul Stories, and we're just getting started. See you in part 3. If you can handle it,